Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Holy moly, the data keeps dropping, folks, and it continues to spell one word and one word alone, and that word is disaster. Or maybe let's add a couple words. Disaster for the Democrats, disaster for Joe Biden, detrimental for your average blue anon leftoid's mental health. Oh man, how things change so quickly, so very quickly. We've been talking about this Robert F. Kennedy Jr. thing for a while. There's obviously two groups with opposing views on the issue. One group thinks that a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. run easily benefits Joe Biden. The assumption is that because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a higher approval rating with Republicans, that he'll end up taking votes away from Donald Trump and aiding Joe Biden in the process. And of course, the other view is the opposite view, that an RFK Jr. run would put two Democrats in the race, which in the end would help Donald Trump win the presidential election. I've been making the argument with very little data, only a couple polls, that an RFK Jr. run, in my view, would clearly help Donald Trump, and it turns out that, at least for now, to a certain extent, that view has been vindicated. Folks, if there are any liberals in the room, tell them to close their eyes and block their ears. We just got a huge set of data that suggests Joe Biden is in big election trouble. I got some data to show you guys today. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, there's a whole lot of talk about polling data. Not exactly surprising, we're heading into a general election, but for the most part, the conversation has revolved around hypothetical, one-on-one, head-to-head matchup data, which of course is helpful, but at the end of the day, you gotta look at the battleground states. You gotta look on an individual state basis. And of course, we've been doing that a whole lot, but now we have battleground state data with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. included into the mix. Look at this, or listen to this if you're listening while you're driving. When Kennedy Jr. is included as an independent candidate, Trump leads Joe Biden in 5 of 6 swing states polled. The data is as follows. Trump leads in Arizona by 5 points at 42-37. Trump leads in Georgia by 3 points at 41-38. Trump leads in Michigan, of all places, at 40-38. Trump is tied with Joe Biden in Pennsylvania at 39-39. Trump leads by 3 in North Carolina at 41-38. And Trump leads by 8 in Florida at 44-37. Absolutely brutal, crushing numbers for the Democrats. A Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign takes votes away from Joe Biden. And I don't even think that's the full picture yet. Here's a core component of it. Why is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running as an independent in the first place? He's running as an independent because the Democrat Party shut down any challenge to Joe Biden, shut down the Democratic nomination process. You have disenfranchised Democrat voters who wanted another option. Robert F. Kennedy could have been another one of those options, and now that guy's running as a third party and he's going to pull more votes from disenfranchised Trump voters than he will Democrat? That makes no sense. It makes no sense at all, and we're already starting to see the picture. Boy, is the narrative shifting and shifting fast. Last week when we spoke about this, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s family members came out unequivocally condemning his run as an independent. Many of them issued public statements, essentially publicly lobbying for him to drop out of the race. Then a couple days later, the narrative shifted. This article was released by Politico. Kennedy family feud cools as RFK Jr.'s independent run rattles Republicans. The stalwart Democrat family had been pressuring Kennedy for months to drop out. So apparently the family's backed off a little bit because RFK Jr. supposedly is going to hurt Republicans. That was released 2 days ago. Well, I have a feeling that Kennedy's siblings probably just called an emergency meeting after they saw this polling data. But honestly, it seems even worse than that for them because Joe Biden's in rough shape regardless. Pretty bad in a 3-way run. But even if Democrats were to convince Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to not run for president, to drop out of the race, Joe Biden still kind of seems screwed. Here's some swing state polling data from Redfield Wilton. In the state of Arizona, Trump leads by 5 points at 44-39. In Florida, Trump leads 5 points at 44-39. In Georgia, Trump leads 43-40. In Michigan, we got a statistical tie which could go any way. And with the voter enthusiasm gap, Trump could easily win. Trump's ahead by 5 points in North Carolina and down 1 point in Pennsylvania, but of course within the margin of error. And Trump's leading in the aggregate in Pennsylvania. Considering the most recent Emerson polling data from the state shows Trump with a +9 lead in the state. It seems like no matter which way you look at it, Democrats are in big trouble. Especially considering Trump doesn't even really need to win all of these states. He only needs to win a few. He only needs to win 3 significant states and it's over. All the data that's coming out of the state of Arizona shows Trump with a massive massive lead over Joe Biden. I mean, honestly, considering the last two elections, pretty shocking potential lead in Arizona. Similar to the numbers that we're seeing coming out of Florida, if Trump takes Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, it's over. But as of right now, if the election was held today, Trump could win Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and probably even Nevada. The shift is very real. The Trump surge is very real. It's no longer a couple outlier polls or a couple reports or stories suggesting that there's a Trump surge. We are seeing a Trump surge. Although, honestly, it's hard to say whether it's an actual Trump surge and more of a Joe Biden tank. It's probably a mix of both, to be honest. Oh, and speaking of what I mentioned in the intro, how the data keeps dropping. Right as I'm in the middle of this recording session, another little beautiful poll drops, this one from Echelon Insights, again showing the exact same thing, that Donald Trump is dominating across the board. In the head-to-head popular vote matchup, this poll is showing Trump with 41% support and Joe Biden with 37% support. But again, not exactly the focus is on the swing states. Notice how a lot of these pollsters all of a sudden are focusing on specific states. When it comes to key battlegrounds, Donald Trump leads by 5 points at 44-39. And just to show this monumental red shift that it's not only Donald Trump, it seems to be a conservative shift in general. On the general ballot, or I guess we could call it down ballot voting, Republicans are favored at 47-44. It seems like voter sentiment, it seems like this environment is that of a red wave or possible red tsunami. These are bigger Republican leads than we saw in the 2022 election, and even though that election didn't necessarily go so great, it was still a Republican victory. Obviously, we've seen a rightward shift, and it seems like we're building on it. Democrats had the whole Roe v. Wade thing, which allowed them to galvanize their base. I'd argue concern related to that issue has subsided quite substantially, especially considering all the doomsday forecasting, for the most part, was highly exaggerated. What I'm seeing now is a never-ending flow of positive polling data for Republicans. Oh, and I almost forgot. The popular narrative in the mainstream media seems to be that Donald Trump is so deeply unpopular with independents that's going to be the core of his demise. But look at Joe Biden's job approval with independents. He's sitting at a negative 34 rating, with only 30% approval and 64% disapproval from independent voters. How can you possibly win swing states if you're down 34 points with the exact voters who essentially decide who's going to the White House? It's not looking so good for Obama's proxy candidate now, is it? Joe Biden's approval is going right back to his all-time low. Extra conflict in the Middle East isn't exactly helping Sleepy Creepy Joe right now. We saw a huge unprecedented shift in Louisiana as the state flipped ruby red in the recent governor's race. Donald Trump's making huge gains in the most important swing states. He's also winning in aggregate polling data in a head-to-head 2024 matchup, meaning Donald Trump might lead the popular vote. Obviously, that's unlikely, but I'm assuming that the gap is going to shrink from 2020. And that right there, I think, is really all that's necessary. Let's not forget, like I've said a million times, Joe Biden's 2020 victory happened in 3 states by roughly 40 to 50,000 votes total. That is nothing. That is less than 1% of the total vote. If Joe Biden loses 1% of his popular vote lead from 2020 to 2024, it's over. And I don't know, friends, barring any funny business, I just don't see Joe Biden winning Wisconsin. I don't see him winning Arizona. I don't see him winning Georgia. And it seems like even Pennsylvania and Michigan are slowly becoming out of reach for Democrats in this election cycle. At least that's what the data is telling us as of right now. And considering the fact that Trump usually does better the closer you get to election day, well then you pretty much get it. That's what I got for you guys on this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.